Welcome to another tier list video, this time featuring all the changes that took place in 6.08, as well as taking into account the data received through Asphodel Savage, which of course hadn't been available in my last tier list video. However, this time I will also take a closer look into the ADPS chart and give you some of my personal experiences that I collected over the course of doing extreme trials as well as the first 2 Savage bosses, and of course many dungeon runs. Because I really feel that even though RDPS is the main deciding factor to rate these jobs, most of the times things spiral around that damage which you deal by yourself and which is presented by tools like ACT without all the background calculation. Or for example when running setups with 2 same jobs in your party, which might negatively affect your RDPS as well. And I believe we're not talking about a totally unrealistic scenario. Still, remember each and every job has cleared all the bosses this expansion has to offer and will do so in the future. So always focus your choice on playstyle and enjoyment aspects, as the balancing is outstanding in this game and minor flaws will easily be compensated by player skill and determination. Also take these tier lists with a grain of salt, because no content creator or journalist will ever be able to master all jobs at the same level and cannot escape their own subjective mindset. So these will always be based on personal opinions and experiences. With that out of the way, let us start with our dear tanks, where I personally have only tested out Dark Knight and Paladin myself, but have talked about Gunbreaker and Warrior many times with good friends and other experts on that section. So unlike in our last tier list video, damage is actually not that insignificant, as utility wise and according to boss design in the recent tier, none of the individual tanks stand out that much in this regard to overpower the competition. Some are just a tad more comfortable and easy to pull off, like Warrior, Paladin or Gunbreaker for example, where Dark Knight still has to be pixel perfect with Blood Weapon and the Blackest Night to earn its pass on mitigation. Nonetheless, Dark Knight's damage is an absolute counterweight, taking the crown of tank DPS, and if you're able to reduce its clunkiness, handle the multiple OGCDs on its opener, it is simply the best option right now in raid fights. But even in dungeons, I have never had any problems in surviving when keeping my TBN on cooldown, and while Paladin or Warrior are dungeon kings for their self-sustain, dungeons will get easier the more this tier is progressing, unless Square is able to do something against it. But for raiding and high-end endgame, Dark Knight is too powerful to not grant it a solid spot, even when being flawed from its job design. The kinda same goes for the Gunbreaker, as it might not pull off the numbers of the Dark Knight, but at least comes very close to it. And once you got some decent gear on this cartridge spending homage to Final Fantasy VIII, you will tank dungeons without breaking a sweat. On high-end raiding, I have seen many Gunbreakers pull off very solid performances, and even though there are some natural misalignments with no mercy still, which could be fixed at any time, Gunbreaker is really powerful at the moment and putting it into the S spot makes sense here. And while Paladin has reclaimed much space on the meta position with the changes in 6.08, it wasn't enough to come close to Gunbreaker and Dark Knight. Yes, Paladin is still a powerhouse of versatility and has access to magical range attacks on top of it. Still, these don't make Paladin a better tank in Savage raids, as if you take a very close look, raid fights are designed with melee jobs in mind, so these advantages are no benefit to your progression or other forms of beating Savage. However, if you consider the versatility of a Paladin for dungeons, solo content or basically every content where Hallowed Ground can be a game changer, it is easily an S tier for that reason alone. But for clearing high-end content and optimizing in it, which these tier lists are all about, A rank due to how strong Gunbreaker and Dark Knight are. Yeah, Warrior. I know many people consider this tank to be the most powerful of all, simply from the fact that there have been solo raid or solo dungeon clears in the last couple of weeks. But if you look at high-end raiding, Blood Wedding isn't that useful, or at least not stronger or better than tools of the other tanks. The only thing that could make Warrior a better choice over the others in certain fights or environments is Shake It Off, especially when being boosted by other dev skills. For example, with a higher HP pool, this is the most powerful AoE shield a tank has access to and might be the deciding factor over competing skills like Passage of Arms or the like. Just give it a quick calculation, every time the boss would literally deal fatal damage, these or other mitigation tools are stronger, because the mitigation value is higher than the player's hit pool. But when being buffed by removing the warrior's death skills by up to a maximum of 21% of total shield absorption value, now comes the clue. Most raid-wide AoE attacks are no fatal damage at all, especially when the slightest piece of gear comes into play. So Shake It Off is the best group mitigation tool and scales insanely well with gear progression. So if at any point warrior damage comes up anywhere close to what Dark Knight and Gunbreaker deal, the warrior literally becomes a one-man army, especially with Blood Wedding for dungeons. Yet until they buff it to become the god of tanks with more DPS output, a solid A rank. Coming to our dear healers. I'm a bit disappointed that no changes hit in that department, because while the overall balancing is insanely good on healing right now, there's just one flaw, which is White Mage. While all healers deal a bit more damage than our former powerhouse of raw healing potency, they also beat White Mage in that category, where it always kept the crown over many expansions. Even Scholar, that offers many other tools outside of simple healing output like Expedient or the way in which the fairy does the job passively, or things like X-Cock that can be utilized preemptively in a very powerful way before any combat action started. Just as much as a Sage, that when being utilized with utmost skill and player determination, heals and deals damage close to the tank DPS output, while also offering very good self-sustain abilities, and I believe MP management is also very solid. At least as far as I have experienced this on fights where many players found their way to the early grave while Sages could lift up many of them. Still, unlike in my last tier list video, I would not consider the Sage to be stronger than Scholar or the one healer that just cannot be ignored any longer, especially due to that one ability, Macrocosmos. Yes, the Astrologian might struggle with MP from time to time and when fights are not running smoothly, but holy heart of the cards, this ability feels and heals like it would be designed out of the concept of super skills that you can use once per fight and would actually have to pay for on a suspicious trader hidden in an ancient cave to unlock it. Above that, my Savage and Ultimate Council Macy also emphasized on the aspect of how powerful and actually overpowered this ability is in P4S, where its design makes it to be able to cheese a fatal mechanic in the way no other healer can achieve. So this skill and the fact that Astrologian might be the better option than White Mage in nearly all aspects, the heart of the cards is really pulsating for the S rank spot here. However, the White Mage is not too far behind and I still love its playstyle and would always favor it over the others because of how the Lily system is designed and due to offering the most straightforward learning curve and start into healing in general. So when playstyle and beginner friendliness would be a thing here, it is indeed my top choice. But for now, until changes happen, it is put down to the B spot unfortunately. Alright, when looking at the melee roster, let us make things not more complicated than needed. Ninja, Dragoon and Reaper perform in the exact way they should perform. I still don't know about any rotational or job design clunkiness for any of these, apart from the overall personal aversion I feel for the Dragoon's design, especially when looking at the animation delays. However, they're always improving these aspects with each patch as well as buffing Ninja, where balancing on these three jobs is on point. The Reaper might still offer the best defensive tool among these jobs, but this is no game changer that would grant it a position above the Jutsu Master and or Floor Tank. However, the story gets a bit more complicated when looking at the Samurai and Monk. Yes, Monk without any second thought and doubt is S rank at the moment, just because this damage advantage over the competition cannot be ignored. And while it might not be that much of a significant lead, it is a bit overtuned in my opinion, because of Mantra also being a thing and how well a Monk scales with buffs of dancers or the like. But on the other hand, this is exactly the argument why Samurai is also in a very good spot now, even though RDPS might indicate the opposite. If we take a closer look at the ADPS chart, we can see an absolute clear difference and Samurai actually takes the lead of the roster due to the same synergy it offers with dance partner buffs or the like, which might actually indicate that some calculations for RDPS are not working how they should. Because when looking at the double-edged sword of these effects, dancers do profit insanely good from Samurai dance partners when taking their Esprit gauge into account. So whatever might be the reason for a kinda low RDPS, which is still in line with Dragoon, Reaper and Ninja, the calculated metrics here seem to actually be a bit flawed. And according to my personal findings, Samurai is super powerful right now, and if you are looking for that job with the absolute highest damage possible, without performing stunts with your brains and other parts of your body by playing a Black Mage, Samurai is the go-to choice in my opinion. So all in all, when Monk is tuned down slightly, this could turn out to be the best melee job balancing in a long time. So let us hope for some minor changes to the Fist, NC Blades, Kunagi, Lance and Scythe fight for the top spot in a fair competition. Leading us to the ranged physical DPS. I don't know how to start this, but maybe by saying how I am glad to see Dancer and Bard being head to head with Red Mage and Summoner. Finally, these jobs are getting the love they should have gotten in Shadowbringers, especially the Bard. Because even though these are supported by the 1% boost to the party by having a well mixed up party and receiving more benefits for the limit break gauge, it is good to know that they can lift the weight of DPS by themselves now, or at least when their support is being counted in. So when A is the baseline where I would like to see all jobs in, this time I can place both of them inside of this spot with confidence, especially as I really like the Endwalker Bard so far, and with minor flaws, I feel like having the best Bard we ever had now. However, if you would name one single job that is being kicked into its family jewels with the last patch, it is the Machinist. Even when looking at the A DPS chart, there is a grim message to be told, because being in line with the Red Mage or Summoner, and sometimes even worse, the Machinist doesn't offer anything above this, not even offensive damage support, leading to the R DPS chart that paints an even darker picture, putting it into the last spot, and that without offering any form of raising or party assistance except the ranged physical baseline mitigation of 10%. But Machinist mains, hear me out. This can easily be changed by adjusting 1 or 2 knobs on Yoshi-P's balancing board, and if they push Machinist between Ninja and the Red Mage on the RDPS chart, I would be insanely happy with overall balancing on DPS jobs. And remember, utilizing a solid DPS output as Machinist feels much easier to me than it does on some of the other jobs, so it is indeed a solid option, especially if other party members are performing way below yourself and you're the only ranged person bringing in those high numbers. So stick to your flamethrower and other skills to melt your competition. Last but not least, casters. Well, the Summoner and Red Mage are definitely on par now. Everyone that declines has never seen those opener madness happening when directly jump starting into Dreadworm trance. And even though it might fall behind on the very high end, when looking at ADPS, Summoner is actually stronger. So this only indicates that Embolden is simply the more powerful buffing skill, because the 2% advantage is much better for bursting windows, where most jobs push out most of their damage, and a 30-second duration like Searing Light is just not optimal. However, they are very close, and I still feel that the Summoner rotation in Endwalker is the easiest to pull off while offering so many good traits on its way. Just the fact that Swift Cast might be blocked for Ruby right now and keeping it for raising is definitely a bit of a disadvantage compared to the Red Mage. But the difference might matter between critting on Akmorn or not critting. So between Red Mage and Summoner, choose that job which you prefer from its playstyle and job design. Still, I would personally grant both of them an S-rank spot due to how strong raising skills are, combined with their flexibility of course. But yes, the melee and Black Mage competition is stronger by facts we can't deny, so merging all these aspects together with the 5% party bonus idea, a solid A-rank option. Okay, Black Mage really seems to be a special case this time, and I would have never believed that those small changes are able to grant the Explosion Master such a high position on ADPS and RDPS. However, there's something off, which I couldn't figure out, because while being edge to edge on ADPS with the Samurai, the RDPS chart shows a totally different picture favoring the Black Mage significantly. Maybe some of you has the exact answer to this, but there seems to be a buff working better with magic damage output, or just simply the way of how FFXIV calculated RDPS and ADPS. So if these numbers are correct indeed, the second spot on RDPS and ADPS would grant the Black Mage a solid S-rank position. But if you would take into account how low the bad fruits are hanging on this one, or how the Samurai actually beats the Black Mage in ADPS while both are simply just bringing raw damage to the table, so it might be an A spot as well. So if you're trusting in FFXIV, we go for S rank, but it is really up to you to decide on this one, like it actually is with all positions. And like I said, balancing right now is really good, only with the Machinist and White Mage that could be slightly tuned upwards, and Monk that seems to be a tad too powerful. But apart from that, all jobs have cleared content and will do so no matter on which spot any stupid content creator will put them. So choose that job that gives you the most chills when watching job action trailers, or just enjoy the game by playing multiple jobs and make your choice dependent on the mood you're in. But of course, if you want a slightly outdated breakdown of each job that should still work for Endwalker in its base form, check out my 5 reasons to play series, which of course will be updated soon to include Reaper and Sage and all the changes happened in Endwalker. Until then, thanks for watching, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep loving Final Fantasy.